My name is Kelly Soa, and when I first saw the hashtag #MeToo on Facebook, right at first I thought, oh, I don't really have a story. And then stories started coming to me, and I was like, oh, I do have a story. And I remembered about 2 years ago, I was at a dance club with some friends, and we were talking to some gentlemen, just laughing and joking around with them, and the one guy was pretty drunk, one of them, and he kept kind of falling asleep, and then, you know, the next thing I know, his arm is around me, and which that happens when you're out, you know, just kind of hugging, you know, side hugging friends or whatever, or people. But then suddenly he tried to put his hand down the front of my pants, and I don't know his name, I don't know anything, and we were right at the bar, literally at the bar, and I stopped him and was kind of like, whoa, no, you know, and then later we went home, and I didn't really think about it until later, and you know, out of all the times that I've gone to a bar or gone to, you know, a place to go dancing or do karaoke with friends or whatever, that's never happened to me. You know, I've talked to a lot of different men, and that was the first time somebody had ever done something so forceful and in my personal space, and it was just kind of shocking to me to feel like somebody could feel like they had that much power to be able to make that decision without me, I guess. And then as I began to think about this, and I saw more stories coming out with the hashtag, more memories came. And today, when I was thinking about what I would say, I thought about in high school, in my English class, as a sophomore, walking down the aisle to turn in my paper, and a guy pinching my butt, you know. And, you know, just all those little things that happen to you as a result of being a woman and living in a society where there's this culture that it's okay to do that. And it affected the way I thought about my body for a long time, and still does, I guess.
Well, my name's Lauren Grove, and I was raped twice. Both when I was extremely drunk. And I was like, I'm not gonna cry.
My name's Kim Barnes. I feel like I have more Me Too stories than I could ever tell. It feels sometimes like the story of my life since I was a girl.
My name is Lauren, and like I said, I come from the Sun Valley area. And when I was a teenager, when I was 14, right after turning 14, I was raped by an 18-year-old. And I knew that I wasn't the only girl that it had happened to. And he threatened me and told me if I told anyone, he would come after me. And I was really scared, of course. I was only 14. And it took me a couple days, but eventually I came forward and I told my parents. And after that, the man was arrested, and then he was released on bail. And during that time, he went on to rape another 14-year-old girl.
My name is Cindy Brinkman, and I have a Me Too story. I have several over the years of being a female. My most recent one was just in over Thanksgiving down in Florida, and a guy was there with his wife, and he made quite a few sexually inappropriate comments to me. One was how I didn't have the best swimsuit, and he wanted to tweak my nipples.
So my name is Iris Alatorre. My Me Too story, the most prominent one as like a young woman, is my second year of college. A few friends and I, it was actually a lot of friends, it was like 13 friends. We left, I think it was like President's Day weekend. We rented a cabin in Montana. And we went for the weekend all to just like hang out and do college student things. And there was a particular individual there who was in our friend group, and he was a nice guy, and we were all good friends, but I didn't know him like super well. And because it was so many of us in one cabin, we were all like sharing bedrooms and like piling on couches and, you know, sleeping basically just super crowded at night. And there was one night where I went to bed, and my college roommate at the time, she was like my roommate, my suite mate in the dorms, she fell asleep on the couch, and her and I were actually sharing a bed. So I went to bed, and then I woke up later that night, and this individual, who was also a U of I student, I woke up with him laying next to me in bed, and I didn't think much of it because I was like, oh, he's probably trying to find, you know, just somewhere to crash. And then like a few minutes later, he started like basically like touching me, just basically trying to get me to have sex with him. And I kept asking him to stop and telling him that I didn't want to, and really I think I spent maybe like, you know, a couple minutes just asking him to please stop. And he wouldn't stop, and at that point I was so tired and just wanted to go to bed and wanted him to leave me alone that I had sex with him because I wanted him to leave me alone. And I think in the middle of it, my suite mate, I think, woke up, and she went to the bedroom to come sleep with me, and she like walked in on the instant, and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, and she left. And so I think I felt really bad because I couldn't speak about it with other people because of what she saw. I thought that she thought that it was consensual.
My name is Madeline Clow, and my Me Too story is from last year in the fall. I was a freshman, and it was one of my first fraternity parties. And I went to a fraternity party on the UI campus, and I was with friends I was very like confident being around, and I felt safe, and we started drinking, and then I got separated from my friends, and this older boy came up to me, and at this point I was so intoxicated I don't really remember anything, but he apparently was flirting with me. We talked about Twitter or something. He got me more drinks. We ended up getting into someone's room. We ended up getting on top of someone's bunk bed. We ended up having my pants off. He had no condom on. We had sex. And then someone was pushing me out of the room, telling me, get out of my room. And then I guess I left the party after that. I don't really remember. I like blacked out after that. I left. I went back to my sorority at the time. I took a shower. I don't even remember if I took a shower. And I went to bed. And then no, I did not go to bed. I took a shower because I felt disgusting. And I didn't tell anyone because I didn't feel like it was sexual abuse because I didn't say no. And when he asked me when he was putting himself inside me, he said, is it okay if I don't have a condom? And I said yes. And that made me feel like that was okay. And I don't know. I don't really remember anything after that. That just makes me feel like it was okay, just saying that. But I ended up going back to my sorority, and it was like in the middle of the night, and I ended up burning myself because I was really mad at myself.
I guess I knew that I wasn't the only girl. And I knew even some of my friends had had it happen to them by the same person. And I was terrified, of course. And I told my friends because I didn't know what to do. And they were the ones that helped me end up telling my parents. And that made it so during the entire court process, I had tons of girls and women come to me and say, this has happened to me too.
I've been molested, I've been harassed, I've been violently raped. What story am I going to tell?
And I just remember stumbling around the fire and someone was helping me towards a tent, and I thought I was just gonna go to bed. And then all of it is black. I don't remember what he looks like at all. I just remember that I kind of like snapped awake and I was like, I have a boyfriend. And that's when he got off. And I just remember crying myself to sleep and waking up the next morning and everyone was like, Lauren slept with some dude and she has a boyfriend, she's a slut, and that's all I could hear outside. And my pants were like forced around my ankles, they weren't even off. And I couldn't find my shoes and I just like left as soon as I could. And my friend was just like, what happened? I was like, I don't know. And I didn't say anything about it until 2 years later.
My name is Julie Scott, and I'm an instructor here at the University of Idaho currently. And my Me Too story has to do with my professional career. I started my professional career at Eastern Washington University coaching coaching a men's golf program. And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but when I went to my first tournament, I was the only woman coach, only female coach. And I also coached the women's team as well. But one of the things that I started to notice right away is that you have to lobby for your team to get into certain tournaments. And I would have to pick up the phone and call other coaches that were hosting tournaments, coaches from UCLA, Arizona State, big schools, big programs. And I would ask very nicely if they had spots available, and I would ask 1 or 2 years in advance. And the answer was always no. So I started to think, well, maybe they just don't realize, the program, and it was an up-and-coming program, and we were a pretty good golf team at the time, and we had a record that was starting to get noticed. So I started to think, well, maybe it's because I'm female. So I had a male assistant at the time, and I asked my assistant if he wouldn't mind making some phone calls. And I said, please don't say you're the assistant, just say you're the golf coach at Eastern Washington University, and if you wouldn't mind, if you have a spot, could you let us into the tournament? And it was at that point that we started to get invites into golf tournaments.
I put up with a lot of the guys grabbing me, pinching me, all kinds of things. But the really crux of the whole thing was we had safety meetings every month, and you were assigned a safety meeting. Didn't matter if you worked inside, didn't matter if you worked outside. You and a couple other people, you were assigned a safety meeting. That was your month. You did it on whatever you wanted to do it on. One of the guys tipped me off the night before, and he said, just be prepared for that safety meeting tomorrow. So it was about, I don't know, maybe about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we went in there, and there was maybe, wasn't the whole group of guys, but there was maybe 25, because maybe the construction guys weren't there, but the other guys that I primarily worked with were there. And there was maybe 25 men. And this was a movie done maybe 20 years before. It was maybe done in the 50s, okay? And there was a woman sitting on an exam table, okay? Nobody else in the picture. just this woman, and she's nude from the waist up. And she's giving a breast self-exam.
You know, the lewd comments, the pats, the allusions to a better grade, that kind of thing. And I think in the academy, it has been especially tough, like other places where you're in a place where men are in power from the top to the bottom.
My Me Too story isn't about sexual abuse or things of that nature, but I've just felt discriminated against professionally. For example, a colleague that I work with at a university, a male colleague, came into my office one day and said, it's getting to be that time of year where female students want their grades raised because they're wearing low-cut shirts to my class. And the same colleague also said at a faculty meeting when we were discussing recruitment and retention, we noticed that we had twice as many female students as male students, and he said, that's okay, they like it that way. And I just thought that was really misogynistic and homophobic, and I think that women experience a lot of these slights all the time.
It happened to me pretty early on during my PhD, and it was pervasive. This is a Me Too that came at me from multiple very senior graduate faculty. The faculty wanted to tell me that I had to choose between family and career, that I couldn't be a good scientist and a mother. I couldn't be a good scientist and a wife, that I really needed to focus on science. It escalated from there into I had to look good in the laboratory, that other women before me had to make these sacrifices. But it was really, I think, very heart-wrenching, really detrimental to the self-esteem of a young graduate student when you think that you're just as capable as the rest of your peers and then you're singled out for being a woman.
My name is Tiffany Overton, and my Me Too story is when I was raped in graduate school, working on my PhD. It was a football weekend, big game, and my friend in graduate school, her brother went to the other school, and so he came down and brought a friend with him. It was also my birthday weekend. So we went out and had plenty of drinks. And then my friend was our designated driver. So she dropped me off at my apartment and then drove home where she lived, I think, 10 blocks away. Next thing I knew, I woke up and the friend that her brother had brought with him was raping me. I don't exactly remember most of it, but the one thing that sticks vividly in my mind is when he got up and left. I lived in Efficiency. Another person was sitting on my couch, and they also got up and left, and it was my friend's brother. They had walked over to my apartment after leaving her house. I drove over to my boyfriend's house, really freaked out, and he let me stay there. The next day I went to, there were two main hospitals in town. I went to one hospital that was a private hospital, walked into the ER, told them I had been raped, and they said, we don't do that here. They told me I would have to go down the street to the county hospital. I was still put in an exam room, and a couple of police officers came in and spoke to me, both men, and it was not a pleasant experience. I left without being seen, and even though the other hospital was down the street, I chickened out before I went and got a rape kit. So I didn't. I guess technically it might have been reported, but since I didn't follow through with any of that, it was really difficult because his father is a powerful person.
Fear, shame, we've been taught, women have been taught, almost across the board, whether it's by family, by elders, by culture, by religion, by father, by mother, by perpetrators, that if you tell, you will be punished. And not only that, it will be your fault.
And I don't want to think it's my fault anymore.
Well, what advice would you give to other women that were in a similar situation?
That they're not alone. And that's why I did that project, was I would have wanted to see that I wasn't alone, especially the first time it happened. I wanted to know that like if people were doing this Me Too thing on the internet and I saw this, I probably would have done something, but I didn't, and I still haven't, and I don't know if that's gonna help me or not, because I just want to make peace with it and know that it happened, and just know that I'm gonna be stronger.